All right, everybody, what is up? Welcome back to another episode of In the Corner. I'm Cash. Today we have episode 139, and oh my goodness, we have so much to talk about. It's been about 5 days since the last episode. It's been a busy, busy weekend in combat sports. So let's just hop right into all of it. We've got a lot of fights to talk about this week, and we're going to talk about some big announcements in the world of MMA. So Dana White did a 16-minute video on the UFC YouTube channel with Michael Bisping and Brandon Fitzgerald where they announced a slew of upcoming fights, every main event and some undercard fights for every single UFC card leading up to the White House. We're going to have a card, I think, every weekend except for one maybe. And dude, it is a very, very stacked lineup. I really liked all the fights they had to announce pretty much. And also liked this delivery a lot more. Now, I think Dana himself was still very much, just reading off the names in his voice, but not really showing much. And then they had Bisping and Fitzgerald, those actually break them down. But this was a much better way to announce fights, an actual production behind it. I really, really loved it. This is way better than the Instagram Lives. I enjoyed it a whole lot. So let's just run through the schedule. Obviously, we're going to get to the big one. But starting off April 18th, he announced that Kyler Phillips versus Charles Jourdain will be co-main event to Gilbert Burns versus Mike Malott on April 18th in Canada. Good fight. A little bit curious about that one being co-main event. It's not going to be a very stacked card. They also announced that Jazza Dickens versus Corrine Silva will be on the card. That is a good women's fight. April 25th confirmed that Algio versus Law will headline. We knew that, but now we have confirmation. Really interesting. May 2nd, co-main event to Praches versus De La Maddalena is going to be Beneil Dariush versus Quillan Salkild. So Salkild getting a ranked opportunity. Dariush definitely in the last few fights of his career. He's supposedly very close to retirement. This is a very interesting fight for them to make. I like it a lot, though. Salkild is a huge prospect, and he's getting a big opportunity with this fight. Also on the card, this wasn't announced in the announcement, but a few days later they had some undercard fights, the biggest of which is Tai Tuivasa. He's not cut. He's going to be fighting Sean Sharaf, so definitely a must-win for him. If he does not win that, then I don't know where you go from. He's on a 6-fight losing streak. It's really, really rough. And then Tim Elliott versus Steve Erceg will also be on the card. I really like that fight at flyweight. And then we get to the big one, May 9th, UFC 328, official for Newark, New Jersey. The main event, Khamzat Chimaev, Sean Strickland. Now, listen, did Imavov deserve the title shot more than Sean Strickland? Probably. Strickland's performance over Fluffy Hernandez was maybe his best. He was really, really impressive, and it totally puts him in title contention. But that was a one-fight win streak where Imavov is on, I think, 5, and you look at the wins over Kyle Baralho and Israel Adesanya. I mean, the guy's just been on a tear. I think that he deserved it more, but you have to also factor into this. The UFC is, kind of what Ronda Rousey said, they're not necessarily in the business of making the biggest fight, or actually, it's not that. They are in the business of making the biggest fights. And Chimaev versus Imavov is the more deserving fight, the more legitimate title fight. However, Sean Strickland is a much bigger name than Imavov. He and Hamza have a great rivalry. The build-up is going to be fantastic, and it is a big, big fight. Those two names together will sell a lot of tickets, and no more pay-per-view buys, but they're going to sell a lot of people coming in over to Paramount Plus to get a subscription. It's a much bigger fight. I mean, no offense to Imavov, he's just not a big name. Strickland's one of the biggest names in the UFC. Especially being an American, and this is going to be headlining in Newark. It is a really, really big fight. I'm really not mad at the UFC for making this. The writing was on the wall. I just hope Imavov does get his opportunity. I don't really know who he fights. Somebody to just stay busy. I'm not sure who that is. Maybe Brendan Allen, but it's just a very weird position for him to be in. He's been out for already 6 months. I don't know what they do with him, but yeah, I'm not mad at this fight. It's a big one. I don't know what Sean Strickland's chances are necessarily. He's a really good striker. Khamzat is a world-class wrestler. If Sean can do a good job of stuff in the takedowns like he did against Fluffy, then we'll see. But I don't know if he's going to be able to do that. I really could very much see Khamzat doing his thing, but who knows? Maybe Sean is the style. We'll find out. Also on the card confirmed, Alexander Volkov, Waldo Cortez Acosta co-main event. Feels like you could have had a better co-main event, but the winner of that will be getting a title shot, it seems. Like that fight. I like Joaquin Buckley versus Sean Brady. That was moved from the April 25th main event to here. Jan Blachowicz and Bogdan Guskov, they're going to run it back off after their draw in December, so fight that needed to happen. King Green, he's back already. He's going to be fighting Jeremy Stevens, who seems is back in the UFC after his BKFC loss. And I actually don't mind that fight. Two guys that have been in the UFC are, in and out, I guess, for Jeremy Stevens in his case, but two guys who have been around for a very long time, and they should put on a pretty fun fight to open up the pay-per-view. And Ateba Gautier will be the featured prelim yet again, this time against Ozzy Diaz, another fight that he will probably win. May 16th, confirmed that Arnold Allen, Melky Kaz is going to be the main event. A wild fight at featherweight. I like it at the Apex. And then May 30th, this Macau card in China is so stacked. Song Yudong versus Davison Figueiredo in the main event. Really good bantamweight fight. I like it. Figgy coming off the loss to Umar, but I thought he had a good account of himself. And Song, of course, coming off the loss to Sean O'Malley, but definitely had a good account of himself on that card. They were both on the January 24th debut Paramount card. I like that fight. I think it makes sense. Co-main event is going to be Zhang Ming Yang back again. He's going to be fighting Alonzo Menefield. So that's actually a very interesting 205 fight. I like it. And then also on the card is going to be Sergey Pavlovich, who, is pretty high ranked at heavyweight. He's going to be fighting Taliesin Teixeira. So Taliesin Teixeira, a pretty decently big name in the UFC, I would say. I think he's got a lot of fans out there. Obviously, he's coming off the loss to Derek Lewis and then the win over Tai Tuivasa, but that was a terrible fight. Some people are questioning why is he getting a shot this big. I think this is only his his fourth fight in the UFC. I think they see potential in him, and this is really time to prove it because Pavlovich is he's a tough out, and we're seeing the UFC put a lot of their potential prospects into these big matches. I mean, they gave Teixeira a co-main event in his second fight, a main event in his second fight, and here he is getting a feature fight against like a top 5 guy. Josh Hockett getting a top 5 guy in his third fight, just because the heavyweight division is so stale, so they need new blood to bring it in. And then June 6th main event is going to be Bilal Muhammad versus Gabriel Bonfim, and this is crazy. Bilal was champion this time last year. He's now headlining an Apex card, looking to defend his top ranking against Gabriel Bonfim, who's a surging contender. It looks like they're trying to do the gatekeeper matchup here. I don't know if that's going to work on Bilal. Bilal is still a really, really good fighter. I don't think he's out of his prime or anything like that. I think that the JDM fight, he very much had the wrong approach to it. And then the Ian Gary fight, Ian Gary's just better than him. We'll see how good Bonfim is. And then Dana White also confirmed that the White House is going to have those 85,000 people we've been hearing about, saying those tickets are going to be free, which is awesome. I thought there was maybe going to be some kind of admission, but I guess they are. You're supposedly just going to be showing up to the big screens, and they say they're ticketing, so that's why I'm like, okay, well, you'd make money, right? You have no way of making money on this event except for that, besides TV, but it looks like they're trying to be cool and give out free tickets. So a lot of UFC announcements. I'm really excited for the schedule. That video just did a really good job of getting me excited. I think that the times are looking good right now. I think they've got a lot of interesting fights on the horizon, and just the way they announced it was much better. Now, an announcement that completely shook up the MMA world. This Netflix card on May 16th is looking insane. It's 1 week after 328. We knew we had Ronda Rousey, Gina Carano. We knew we had Francis Ngannou returning versus Felipe Lins. Now we know we have Nate Diaz and Mike Perry both returning to MMA, a 5-round welterweight bout. Holy crap. This is insane. I mean, I don't think any of us saw this coming. Now, look, Diaz hasn't fought in MMA since 2022. Perry hasn't fought in MMA since 2021. Both these guys, they're both out of their primes, at least 100% in MMA. Mike Perry's doing his thing in bare knuckle, but even then you have to think that soon enough he's going to get close to maybe getting clipped one of these times. This is an MVP fight. Both these guys have headlined MVP pay-per-views against Jake Paul, where they both lost. Nate Diaz, we know he wants to still fight. He almost fought Jake Paul in a rematch in December. We know that he was very much in the running to be what AJ ended up being, and I'm glad they went with AJ. We know that apparently he was in negotiations for Conor McGregor, and that's the big question now because McGregor versus Diaz seemed like it was the perfect fight to make for International Fight Week on July 11th. Nate Diaz is no longer in the running there, and apparently him joining this fight is hurting his chances of ever returning to the UFC, which I'm okay with because I didn't see him fully returning unless it was for something like McGregor. We knew Perry was never going to go back, and it is kind of crazy, but look, I mean, Perry, I was shocked he was going to come to MMA, but the guy is a big name. He's going to get an opportunity to fight on Netflix against a legend in Nate Diaz. This is huge. This is also huge for ticket sales. This is huge for viewership. A lot of people are saying, okay, all these guys are out of their prime, but look at it. You don't think Dana would kill to have Nate Diaz, Ronda Rousey, and Francis Ngannou all sharing a card? He absolutely would. You throw in there Mike Perry and Gina Carano. I mean, these are some superstars, and for the first time, maybe ever, the UFC has a real competition. They have their White House card this summer, and right now they are tracking to have the second most viewed card of the year there because this event is so stacked, and these are just the 3 top fights. We don't know what else is going to be on it. I can't see them having a fourth, essentially main event. Like any one of these cards would have headlined a UFC pay-per-view last year. Any one of them. And you can't tell me I'm wrong. I don't care if there's not a title on the line of any of them. We know Ronda Rousey was going to headline there. We know Francis Ngannou was headlining pay-per-views on PFL. And we know that Nate Diaz and Mike Perry have headlined pay-per-views their last few fights. Like, It's just a no-brainer. It's just a no-brainer, and I can't believe how stacked this card is with no cost. MVP is making a huge splash for their MMA debut. I'm excited. Now, let's talk about the fights we had this weekend. We talked a lot about MMA. Let's do some boxing. I'm going to try and go through this quickly because there is quite a bit to talk about today. Let's start with what I think was probably the biggest fight of the weekend, and that was, of course, in Dublin, Ireland. Happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone. Sorry, that was a bad Irish accent. But main event, Anthony Cacace taking the WBA super featherweight title from one James Jazza Dickens. It was an interesting fight. It was a lot closer than I think we were expecting. I was kind of expecting Cacace to put Dickens in his place. You know, Dickens is a guy who's gotten this WBA title and has had an Indian summer, but I didn't think that he was good enough to take on Cacace. Now, I thought he had a really good performance. I think he had some competitive rounds. In fact, a lot of the rounds were competitive. They were just all going Cacace's way for me. This narrative that's being spun that Cacace robbed Dickens and that Dickens won the fight is absurd to me. I thought that it was a closer fight than I was expecting, but I thought Cacace was a clear winner, like clear by rounds. I thought the scorecards were very accurate. I really am surprised to see, people thought Jazza won this fight. No, he did not win that fight, like not at all. He was surprised, and that when they read out the score, I was like, he thinks he won. Like, damn, that sucks. No, he did not win that fight at all. Was it Anto's best performance? Absolutely not. People were talking about unifications against Emmanuel Navarrete and Oshaki Foster. While I would love to see those fights, that Cacace was not the same one that we saw beating up Joe Cordina and Lee Wood. Not saying that he's bad or anything, it just wasn't his night. It wasn't his night. And Dickens, it was his night. He was a lot better. He was a lot better than he has been. But he was not good enough to beat Cacace still. So I had no issues with the scorecards. It wasn't as exciting as the fight as I was hoping it was. That card was very exciting. I had a lot of exciting moments. That one, it was a good main event, but not the best. But yeah, Anthony Cacace is a huge star in Ireland. Obviously, Ryan Garner on the undercard. He had a good performance against a journeyman. The thought is that those two would fight in the summer. I like that. It's an easy in-house fight for Cacace to make, for Queensberry to make. Cacace gets his first world title defense and doesn't have to go straight into a unification. It seems like Navarrete and Suarez are going to rematch. And Eddie Hearn is saying that Oshaki Foster, Ray Ford is essentially, the terms are virtually agreed for, we don't know when, but soon in the U.S. And that is obviously a banger of a super featherweight title fight with the WBC. Yeah, so, and look, we're going to talk about it. It seems like Top Rank's going into DAZN. And if so, that makes a lot of sense, Matchroom versus Top Rank on DAZN. So, only time will tell if that is the case. But it really does feel like that fight is going to be announced fairly soon. And if so, the unifications aren't available. Ryan Garner wants his title shot. Let's make it happen, dude. Also on the card, you had Pierce O'Leary. He beats Maxie Hughes. He actually stops him. How many rounds did it take him? Yeah, Maxie Hughes retires after 5 rounds. It was just all steam from Pierce O'Leary. The guy is so good. And every time we realize, like, wow, he doesn't have the hugest profile, but he's got a big fan base in Dublin. And he can bang. He can big bang, that's his name. And he was going to the body on Maxie Hughes. And Maxie Hughes is a guy who has been giving everybody trouble and still getting great wins at 135. Again, he's coming up in weight here on short notice and it's an undefeated heavy hitter. The odds were never in his favor, but to put away Maxie Hughes that early, it was insane to me. So really, really good performance from Pierce O'Leary. Of course, he was meant to be Mark Chamberlain. I don't know if you run that one back. He now does have the IBO world title. Maybe he goes to world level and tries to get a big fight there. I mean, a lot of good fights for him. A lot of interesting fights for him. I'm very curious who they throw him in with. Another IBO title fight on the card was John O'Carroll beating Cole Murphy. Pretty good fight. I thought it was close, but I did think John O'Carroll was probably the right guy to get the decision. I had it a draw, but I would have given it to John O'Carroll if I had to choose. I thought that he outboxed Murphy really well in the back half of the fight. He was in the sweepstakes. They were saying to fight the winner of the main event. I think Ryan Garner deserves it more. You had the pro debut of Adam Olanian. He was really impressive. Took a guy on like under a minute. Stephen Cairns, very dominant and exciting performance against Arnie Dawson. Stops him in the 9th round. His first pro title. Ewan Lavin stops Liam Walsh in the 8th round of a very fun fight, I think, for like the Celtic Championship. It was a good card in Dublin. Then you go over to California. You had a stacked golden boy card. Arnold Barboza Jr., Kenneth Sims Jr., both these guys making their welterweight debut, coming off of losses in big fights, and Barboza absolutely dominates Kenneth Sims. I give Kenneth Sims the first round. I was one of the only people to give him a round. The judges had given some of them gave Sims like a round or 2 or even 3, which I was like, that's even stretching it. I thought that, again, a lot of those rounds, especially early on, were kind of competitive, but it was still just all Barboza. He was taking all of them. And then as the fight went on, it was just more and more Barboza. It was never going to be an exciting fight. Neither of these guys have a lot of power. And it was always going to be one that was more of a chess match. And Barboza just proved to be a much better guy there. I thought that he looked bigger as well. And look, welterweight, people have been saying for the longest time, oh, it's a bad division. All of the guys from 140, we're talking about how good of a division is, they're now at 147. All of them. And you have a guy who's 147. So 147 is actually becoming a really interesting division with you've got like 15 guys there that could all demand title shots, and Barboza is now one of them. We'll see who he gets in with. A leading contender, obviously once Ryan Garcia, a leading contender is Alexis Rocha, who's on the undercard. He beat Jojo Diaz. It was a very, very strong performance from Rocha, I thought, in his comeback fight after like almost a year and a half. Jojo, I thought, did good in the last few rounds, made it close. But still a wide decision win for Rocha. Jojo for some reason thought he won when they read out where he said like from Santa Ana, which is, I think that's where it was, and that's not where Jojo is from. So I don't understand why he started to celebrate, but Alexis Rocha and Barboza kind of talk after, and it seems like they could be down to fight each other. I wouldn't mind that at all. Again, a good in-house fight for Golden Boy to make. Also on the card, Oscar Collazo has Jesus Haro retire on the stool after 6 rounds. I mean, it wasn't even close. He just kind of, went straight through and was just dominating him. And not a bad decision from the corner, but I really wish we could just get Collazo versus Melvin Jerusalem too, or any other unification or big fight, because right now he's just fighting absolute scrubs. It's such a, not a deep division at all, but he really wants undisputed, and then Golden Boy can't make those fights right now for him, which I hate. Speaking of undisputed, Gabriela Fundora destroyed Viviana Ruiz. I thought Viviana Ruiz actually, had some good moments, here and there. I thought that she tried to bring the fight, but Fundora's just a unit in that division. She stops her in the 6th round, looked really good. She's a monster, man. She says she wants to get one more fight so that she can get the WBO ring, and then after that, it is going to be up to super flyweight to fight Mizuki Haruta. Sounds like the plan is, which I love. Joel Iriarte had a bit of a tough fight, I guess. Had a tough opponent who wouldn't go, and then gets him out in the 6th round. Grant Flores, drops his guy twice in the 2nd round, and then goes and gets a decision win. Caden Griffiths, 1st round knockout. Same with Leonardo Sanchez had a 2nd round, as did Junebug Garcia. Fabian Guzman gets a unanimous decision win, but that was a bit of a close fight, I won't lie. I was a bit surprised at how wide some of those scorecards was. I had it 77-75. It was really, really close, but he stays undefeated. Good Golden Boy card. And, yeah, I hope we get to see more on DAZN, but I have a theory that we may not. Hopefully Schofield Batty does happen on April 11th. That's what they've been saying, but we'll see if that actually happens. Let's talk about the UFC more. They had their Apex event this weekend. Kevin Vallejos finishing Josh Emmett in 1 round. I mean, he just annihilated him. We all expected him to. This was his big spot to shine, and did it very easily with Josh Emmett, who's now been finishing the 1st round for the 2nd time in a row. It's getting towards time we start talking about retirement, I think, but we'll see. I think he still fights on, and Vallejos will now move up the rankings. And we'll see who they match him up with next. Jillian Robertson, good performance in the co-main event. Had a tough 1st round against Samantha Lemos, and then takes the unanimous decision win with winning the 2nd and 3rd round. Jose Delgado, good performance in a bit of a close fight with Andre Fili. Gets that one by split decision. Marwan Rahiki and Harry Hardwick. My goodness, what a fight! Hardwick retires after the 2nd round because he broke his jaw, but dude, Hardwick has some kind of chin because Rahiki is just annihilating him, and he's not going anywhere. Island Kutalaba with an upset 1st round submission over Umar Sy. There was a few submissions on this card, or upsets. I mean, Charles Johnson getting the win over Bruno Silva. I thought that one was close. I thought Bruno Silva deserved it, but okay. Miktabek Oralbai completely dominates Chris Curtis. A very Khabib Nurmagomedov-esque performance. And he will hopefully get a ranked opportunity soon at 170. I don't know what's going on there. Vitor Petrino getting the win over Steven Asplund. Really, really fun fight. Asplund doesn't get the win here. I thought it was close, but Petrino did probably edge it. He'll get another opportunity soon, though. Fun fight. Elijah Smith getting a 2nd round submission. He looked good. Manuel Sosa, I think that, he looked good and knocked out Balaji Oki in the 3rd round. Eric Anders had a win over Brad Tavares. I thought that was a pretty good fight. Bia Mesquita, 1st round submission. It was all around. It was a very fun event. I enjoyed it, and we're in London next week for a good one. Nonito Donaire versus Riku Masuda. Wow. This was a very fun card in Japan, and Riku Masuda stops the legend. Nonito Donaire fought Tsutsumi in December in what was a very close and competitive fight. I thought Tsutsumi barely got the decision there. And then coming into this WBA bantamweight title eliminator, Riku Masuda stepping up to world level, and it's competitive for the first few rounds, and then it just starts to become more from Masuda. Drops Donaire big in the 7th round, and then the corner throws in the towel in the 8th. I thought Donaire could have kept fighting, but I'm not mad at them stopping it. He was getting beaten up, and they made the right decision. He's in his 40s. No need to keep on getting beat up like that. It is, again, I thought Donaire was already retired. Maybe we revisit those conversations. But yeah, what a win for Riku Masuda. He's now mandatory for Seiya Tatsumi. So is Antonio Vargas. I don't know what's going on, but the WBA bantamweight title is a mess, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah, good performance from Masuda. Co-main event, Anthony Olasquaga completely dominates and stops Yukiya Iimura in the 9th round. Really, really good performance. Olasquaga is a great guy at flyweight. Hopefully he gets into a unification fight soon. Iimura was... I mean, dude, the hematoma on that guy, like his head was 3 times larger. It was very scary, so I hope he's okay. You had Shokichi Iwata pulling off an upset. He beats Knockout TP Freshmark, takes his WBC light flyweight crown, so he's now champion again. Just the 2nd loss on Knockout TPF's record after Koyazo in 2024. And yeah, it was a cut on Knockout TPF that stopped the fight, and then went to the scorecards where Iwata won by unanimous decision. Then you Ryosuke Matsumoto dominating Yuni Takada, and their very pointless rematch. I know the first fight ended early because of the cut, but I thought that it was all way Matsumoto in the first time around, and it yet again was this time. It goes the distance, but a good win. And he's a guy that could maybe go in and fight Oscar Collazo. I wouldn't mind that. If we're not going to get a unification, I would love to see him fight Matsumoto, who holds the WBA regular title. Friday night, you had a fight of the year candidate between Najee Lopez and Manuel Gallegos. Lopez wins by finish in the 8th round. I thought that he was winning in the early half, and then Manuel Gallegos, who we know is a very, very tough SOB, wins 4, 5, 6, and 7 for me. He knocks Lopez down in the 7th round. It's like, oh boy, here we go. And then Lopez just unloads on Gallegos in the 8th. It's insane. And when Lopez got dropped, he had Gallegos on the ropes hurt, and Gallegos throws a shot back and drops him. And then it's the same sequence, except this time Lopez KOs him through the ropes. I mean, what a breakout win, and went super viral. Lopez is, becoming a star on Pro Box TV. People talking about, oh, what if he fights Anthony Yard? I mean, the guy is definitely becoming a force at 175. We know he almost got the Turbia fight. They were trying to talk about, oh, Benavidez. I'm like, no, don't talk about Benavidez, but he's got a lot of good potential. Dominic Valle squeaks out a decision win over Eduardo Ramirez. I would like to say that I actually thought Eduardo Ramirez nicked the fight. It was very close. Valle had 2 of the scorecards, 98-92, which is absurd to me. Dante Benjamin, a dominant decision win over Angel Lozano, but that was a fun fight. Delvin McKinley, he upsets Christian Chiesa. That was another fun one. And then Kenyon Valle, the younger brother of Dominic Valle, he gets a decision win as well. It was a very well-matched weekend on Pro Box TV, as it always is, and they've got another card this upcoming week with Lester Martinez fighting for the WBC interim super middleweight title. A lot of fun times. And then over in Newcastle, in UK, you had BKFC, Mick Terrell back in the win column. Really weird fight. He essentially jabs Ghost McFarlane twice, and then McFarlane says he can't see, and the fight is ended. So a bit of a disappointing main event for sure. But Terrell, saying, I want to get back in the title picture, and you want to run it back with Rothwell? He's like, no, give me Arlovsky. I want the title. Give it to him. I think Perdomo deserves it more. Maybe you do run back Terrell Rothwell. I don't know. But a lot of good fights in that division. Co-main event, Sean Ware ran through Matt Hodgson. That was a fun one. And then Jizem Somani, a former WWE star, he gets dropped in the first round, then drops Dan Curtin 4 times in order to stop him in the second round, and then has a great promo on the mic, essentially saying F you to the whole audience, and everyone's saying, I'm the Albanian psycho, I'm here to take over. I'm not, I'm like, dude, this is great. This is, obviously I can tell this guy's from WWE, and he will fit in great over on BKFC. So, fun weekend of fights. Let's talk about some news, and we got a big piece here. Top Rank is supposedly already closed a deal with DAZN, a multi-year deal. So it's going to be 8 to 10 shows a year is what we're hearing. 1 to 1.25 million license fees per event. Now, that is very, very little. That's like the same amount that Boxer gets on the BBC. And we've seen how ass those cards are. I really hope Top Rank has some sort of other, sponsorship helping them put on these events. And I hope this number isn't true, because we know Top Rank puts on big fights. They put on big events. And 1 to 1.25 million is not much at all. That, I think people say, yeah, that'll cost some of the production costs. Like once you get into the undercard, dude, these guys in the main events, they make millions, and usually the broadcaster gives a lot more than 1 to 1.25 million. I mean, we saw it. UFC gave $7.7 billion to the UFC. Now, granted, they're a bigger organization, but I'm just going to do that math really quick here for you. So that's over 7 years, right? And, say there's 40 events in the UFC a year, which I think is actually less. That's 27.5 million that could be distributed to event if they were just doing it based on that, which I know there isn't, but like that's crazy. And Top Rank, should be putting on close to the same level of production for the UFC cards and close to the same level of fights. And they pay their fighters more than the UFC does. So I don't know, man. But I'll say this. I'm really, really happy Top Rank is going to be going to DAZN. They have been homeless for almost 8 months. We haven't had a legit Top Rank show except for the Zayas card in Puerto Rico. And we need them back in boxing. And they've got, since then, I mean, their fighters have been presenting the company greatly, going on to PBC, Matchroom, Ring Magazine cards, and beating up everyone, winning world titles. Like, it's insane. Zayas has become unified. Foster's great performance. Navarrete unifying. You had Bruce Carrington winning a world title. Abdullah Mason winning a world title. Emiliano Vargas becoming a contender. Like, dude, these Top Rank guys, Michaela Mayer, like, or actually she just left and went to MVP. That's what we're going to talk about in a minute. But I mean, you've seen them all just go on to and do great things on these other platforms while they've been waiting to get their stuff going. And I think Top Rank, they finally came and said, all right, let's just go to DAZN. Everyone else is there. DAZN is a special announcement tomorrow. Some people are saying, oh, well, Jake Paul as an announcement. I don't think Jake Paul's announcement is fight related. Maybe it is, but I think that this is likely a it's likely the DAZN Top Rank announcement. But look, hey, I'm excited. I want to know what their first fights are. I'm glad they're on DAZN. I think that they belong there with everyone else. And they also say that they could be negotiating a second broadcast deal. I would like to see it. We know they wanted to have multiple homes, but I don't know if it happens. Maybe it's ESPN. Who knows? But I'm excited for the future of Top Rank and just really glad to hear they're on there. Now, this is making me question Golden Boy. Is Golden Boy not going to be on DAZN? Because they're doing the one-off events. We know they're trying to negotiate a deal. They didn't get Boots Ortiz over the line. And now DAZN is choosing to bring on Top Rank for an amount of money that Golden Boy would probably like to have. And DAZN doesn't have unlimited money, even though they invest tons into the sport. You have to question, is Golden Boy taking Top Rank spot? Who knows? But what is good news for them is that the fight between David Benavidez and Zurdo Ramirez has been confirmed to also be on DAZN pay-per-view. I hope it's also on DAZN Ultimate so that we don't have to pay for it on pay-per-view. I would hope so as part of the subscription, but I don't know if that's the case as it is also a Prime Video pay-per-view, and they may think like, hey, that's not fair. You can't do that. One thing about the Top Rank deal, supposedly the 8 to 10 shows is not a limit. They could do more dates than that because it's something where like if they have a fight that's ready to go and the DAZN likes it, they'll just go ahead and make the event. And I don't know. I just hope that this deal is true, but Top Rank is getting the amount of money they need for the events. What is interesting is because WBC is having this stupid commemorative belt online for Benavidez-Zurdo, both the WBA and the WBO are saying that they may refuse to sanction the fight unless the WBC removes it. Now, I don't give a shit about the WBC commemorative belt. I hope that it's not on the line because it is stupid. However, these sanctioning bodies with the rise of Zuffa boxing, they need to be teaming up and not going against each other. And I think this is just a statement and a threat. I think they will be on the line. At least I hope so. Let's talk about this undercard though. So it was reported massively today that Jose Armando-Resendiz and Jamal Charlo had closed a deal to fight in the co-main event for the WBA super middleweight title. And it was like, all right, we know this was in talks. It's a good fight for PBC to make. Why not? Whatever. It then gets reported, nope, this is wrong. Jaime Munguia, who was out of the fight, has now returned and he has signed the deal. He and Resendiz are going to fight May 2nd in that co-main event slot. That seems like it is official. It is a done deal, signed and delivered. As for which fight I like more, I'm okay with either of them. I mean, Charlo has barely fought in the last few years. Does he deserve a title shot? Probably not. Munguia is on a one-fight win streak and had that win while he had PEDs in his system. Does he deserve a title shot? Probably not. So I'm a little bit iffy on either of them really deserve it, but I'll say this. Resendiz versus Charlo would have been a good fight. Resendiz versus Munguia is guaranteed to be absolute fireworks, and I'm not mad at that fight at all, especially when this is an all-Mexican card. Have a Mexican main event or co-main event. Let's do it. Some other fights reported for the card. Apparently, Oscar Duarte's back against Angel Fierro. That is another firefight. Two Mexicans again. Shakram Giasov could be fighting Raul Curiel for the WBA interim 147 title, and that is because we're hearing that Devin Haney and Rolly Romero is almost a done deal for May 30th in Vegas. I love that. It's unification. Get it going. I need Shakram to get his title shot, but if he's getting an interim against Curiel, I'm fine with that because that's a great fight as well. And then as well, we know that Lamont Roach, William Zepeda could be on that card. So, dude, like, stuff is looking good for that event. Like, those are 5 banger fights All of which, besides Duarte Fierro, are world title fights or world title implications, like interim wise. It's going to be a really, really good day of boxing May 2nd because Inoue Nakatani is the same day. Moving on from that, Alex Pereira says he's signed an 8-fight deal, and this is crazy because Pereira's 38 and he's still got 8 fights left. Now, the guy is known to be very active. We know he's just now moving up to heavyweight, and I don't know if signing 8 more fights is a good idea. I expect him to have like 3 or 4 more, and maybe call it quits. I would, if I was him and I win the heavyweight title, I'm just retiring right then and there. I'm not risking. I'm like, bro, I went on maybe a GOAT run in the UFC. Let's end it now. Why not? But who knows? I'm not going to complain if we get more Alex Pereira. He's my favorite fighter in the UFC probably. So if we get more of him, then I love it. I love it. And now I also just saw that Jermall Charlo apparently is no longer available for the fight, whatever that means. I mean, the guy fights like once every 2 years. Like, how are you not available for one date, bro? But anyways, moving on from that, Bam Rodriguez is supposedly set to face Antonio Vargas for the WBA bantamweight title in June. That is the plan at the moment. We know Bam, he wants to go undisputed at 115. That's not going to be possible for his next fight, so he's going to move to 118, get a title there. I'm surprised he's going for WBA. I mean, obviously, Christian Medina is with Matchroom, and that seemed like the fight that made all the sense in the world. And Vargas wasn't even champion last time I checked because the WBA is just changing between Vargas and Tsutsumi. One is champion recess, like literally switching back and forth like 3 times now. And it looks like Vargas is going to get to hold the title now so that they can, sanction another Bam fight. And it's just kind of stupid, bro. I don't know. But look, I mean, if this is the case, good for Bam because he's going to slice through Vargas like hot butter. Like, this is potentially the best champion, or actually, I don't know if that's true, but one of the best champions in the sport versus one of the worst champions in the sport, like without doubt. Like, it's not even close. Like, that is a very fair and honest statement to make. Like, Bam is top 5 pound for pound. Vargas, world champion wise, is top bottom 5 pound for pound, if you even count him as a champion, because you also have Tsutsumi there. So yeah, I think this goes one way. I think we all know how. There's rumors this week, or last week I should say, of Movsar Evloev having issues with his visa. There was a little bit of a scare, like, is he going to be able to make it to London? We now know he's all good. He says don't worry about it, and I believe he's already in London for the fight. So all good to go for the featherweight title eliminator on Saturday. I'm really looking forward to it. MVP, as we mentioned, has signed Michaela Mayer, and this again they just keep on growing their stable of top fighters. I think she's number 3 pound for pound with the Ring magazine. They have everyone, and they talk about women's league. I think that if this Ali Act goes through, I think the MVP is going to do what Zuffa's doing, and just nobody's talking about it like that. But I think they're going to form their own women's league where they have their own titles. Maybe, I don't know, because we know Nikisa Badarian has talked poorly of the sanctioning bodies recently, talking about how they don't make the most marketable fights for the divisions and stuff. And it's like he talks about the sport more of is more of a business than a sport, and it is a business, but it's also a sport, and but I do think MVP is a very good understanding of the fight business and as a sport, and I think that it does seem like the cards are aligning for the MVP if they're able to make their own belt to just do that with their MVPW league, as they're literally calling it that, and they just signed another killer. Top Rank and her, she was the only like women's fighter that Top Rank had, and now she's on MVP, of course. So we'll see. Boots has moved on from the Virgil fight. Saying like, look, I tried to make this fight happen. Virgil responded, said, I tried to make this fight happen too. It was neither of these guys' faults, really. They were both trying to. It was Virgil's manager and promoter that got in the way, and boxing politics, as it always does. We also know here that Boots Ennis and Xander Zayas are in talks for a big, big fight in the summer, May or June. Who knows? New York, Philly, wherever, but man, that would be an awesome fight. Boots is, of course, WBA interim champion. Zayas is the WBA and WBO champion. If Zayas enters this division, for his first title fight, wins the title, unifies in the second fight, and then is already going to defend against probably the toughest fight in the entire division, dude, like, hats off to him. And this is a huge fight. I mean, this could be a pay-per-view. I don't think it is. Some people are going to try and book it as that, and if it is, bro, so be it, because Boots is a big star, and Xander Zayas certainly is. Yeah, it's a great fight, and I hope it is next. If it's not going to be that, then Boots should be fighting either Josh Kelly or Xander Zayas. That's it. Kamaru Usman says he wants Conor McGregor, and look, I like it. We know Conor's going to be fighting at 170. All the welterweight contenders are right now about to get booked. Usman's a guy who doesn't deserve a title shot. He wants one. He says, I only want a title shot or meaningful fight. That's one fight that we've talked about for a while. It doesn't seem like Charles is necessarily the best option anymore after his not-so-BMF performance in that fight. If it is Usman Conor, I'm so down. I love it. Dalton Smith, Alberto Puello supposedly is set for or in talks for June 6th in Sheffield. We know that Smith is set to have his return then, and Puello has been already been ordered the mandatory for Smith. Now, it was Smith's first defense. I was hoping that he wouldn't have to immediately go and, or they were hoping at least that he would get to have a bit of a voluntary. Nope. Going to go right in. And Alberto Puello was a tough fight. Like, Matias beat him, but that was a really close decision. Could have gone either way. And he did, Smith stopped Matias, who beat Puello, but boxing match doesn't work like that. This is another 50-50 fight for Smith, and I love it. If we're going right in with the big one, so it should be a fun fight in Sheffield. After that, we also know that Catterall Ramirez apparently has fell through. I don't know why. Maybe this is because Catterall feels good about his position with the WBO. He wants to fight in an eliminator. I don't know. I didn't really like the idea of Jose Ramirez getting the fight anyways off of 2 losses, where it's been, he's like only 2 fights in the last couple of years. So I'm not overly mad. I thought it was going to be a bit of a boring fight, but I hate it for both the guys' activities and hope they still get a big fight. Matchroom did announce, however, that Jarrell Miller will fight Lanier the Fear, or no, that's Donaire, that's his brother, but Lanier Perro, April 25th in Las Vegas, and it will be a WBA heavyweight title eliminator. So this is good for Miller. He's getting more active, and he's getting a big fight here, getting to headline. It's crazy he's with Matchroom now, or at least for this fight he is. And it's a title eliminator. I mean, Lanier Perro didn't look amazing in his last fight, in his Matchroom debut. And now here he is getting the big fight with Jarrell Miller. Miller was there at the last fight. It seemed like they were trying to set this one up. Everyone's like, why? They're both very highly ranked with the WBA. It is a good fight. I'm curious how it goes, but it could be very much a bit of a slop fest to watch. Hopefully there's some kind of a knockout, but just knowing these two, they're both very big guys. I think it may be a little bit of a slop, but look, we're getting a heavyweight title eliminator headlining in Vegas at the end of April. There's like no U.S. boxing in April, like at all. There's like a few smaller events. That's it. I think like you have the MVP card on April 17th. I mean, you have the Canada Ilse Iglesias fight on April 9th. And then you've got like a pro box show on April 11th. I know, and April 10th. Other than that, not and Brandon Adams Keeman and Jarko, which is not a huge event. So like we needed more big fights in April in the States, and we're getting some. So I'm down with it. Moving on from that, we also know Matchroom has won the purse bid for Ricardo Sandoval Galaya fight. This is good news. Bad news for Golden Boy, but they don't have a TV deal at the moment. Good news for Matchroom. They're going to bring it to the UK. Maybe that's on the same card as Smith Puello. I love that, but probably better to do it on its own show in like June or July in Birmingham, and have that one headline Unified World Championship, and it's probably one of the best fights in the division. So I'm very much down for it. Yafai entering that fight after his last performance is definitely a bit, but he did get an unfair shake last time out. Clarissa Shields says that she is returning May 9th, or actually, no, she does not say this. This was reported that she could be returning May 9th in Atlanta. I hope so. I live in Atlanta, and dude, that would be awesome. I would love if she was fighting in Atlanta. I saw Oteef Oberlton could be in the co-main event again, and we'll see. She always fights in Detroit, and I think she does have a fan base in Atlanta. But I did see somebody say, like, this may not be fully true. We'll see, and I would love if she's back May 9th. Like, that's a really quick turnaround, and hopefully she's in with another good opponent. It's not going to be Shadasia Green as she fights just the month before. We'll see who it ends up being. Who knows? Muhammad Makayev says that he was offered the fight with Mighty Mouse, and he accepted it, and everyone's like, oh my gosh. And he's like, also, this is the perfect fight to go on that May 16th card. Like, imagine this was the 4th fight. DJ returning to MMA and fighting Muhammad Makayev. Like, dude, like the best flyweight outside of the UFC versus the best flyweight of all time. Like, bro, book it. Now, DJ did shoot this down and say it was BS. Maybe he's lying. Maybe he is going to come back and fight one more time. If they did, bro, like, this would actually be such a banger card, those 4 fights. But I do kind of believe him saying that he's, that's not going to happen. We did have some updates to the Sebastian Fundora Keith Thurman card. Now, obviously, we already knew that the co-main event between Torres and Sanchez had been canceled, or at least postponed, which is very unfortunate, but it is what it is. Now, we do know that the new co-main event is going to be Yoenis Tellez versus Brian Mendoza, which is a good fight. I thought that was going to be like the card opener. It's now the the co-main event over Yoeli Hernandez Terrell Gasha, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. That should be co-main. And Gurgen Hovhannissian will fight Cesar Navarro now in the opening fight of the main card, which is and actually a good step up for Hovhannissian. Navarro gave a very tough fight to Donaire Perro in May. Now of course Elijah Garcia versus Kevin Newman is going to be moved to the main event of the prelims. So that just doesn't make any sense to me. All this shuffling around, like Garcia versus Newman should be on the pay-per-view over Hovhannissian and Navarro, unless they want to have an early, a heavyweight knockout to start off the card, which I don't hate. And I feel like Tejas Mendoza should not be co-main event over Gaucher versus Hernandez. But it is what it is. Still a good card, but it's just not pay-per-view worthy. It's just not pay-per-view worthy. I'm sorry. We also know Leonard Kavanaugh is saying that he was offered the Brandon Royval fight and that Royval turned it down for Macau, and that does suck. That fight doesn't make a whole lot of sense to take place in China, but I mean, it's a good fight and it does suck, and it looks like they do want to move Kavanaugh pretty quickly. I mean, he's already in like number 6, and they don't want to move him down the rank; they want to move him up. So Brandon Royval is the fight that I said makes the most sense, and we'll see if it does end up happening, but at least not on May 30th. Rumors are swirling that Jared Anderson is going to be signing with Queensberry. Doesn't surprise me he's no longer with Top Rank. Has very much felt like a relationship where he's promoterless. He hasn't done anything in over a year. So that makes sense. And Queensberry investing in an American heavyweight, you need some help. And, Queensberry is the home of the heavyweights. It's just interesting if they're taking an American on. Maybe they come to the U.S. I don't know. But rumor is that he will be fighting on the Wardley vs. Dubois undercard. I very much can see this as a possibility. We don't know who's fighting on that card yet and should find out very soon. And I would assume they want to put a lot of heavyweights on there, and he seems like a perfect guy to be in that slot. We'll see who it's against. The BBBFC confirmed that Troy Williamson versus Callum Simpson 2 is going to happen. But Williamson is supposed to be fighting Zach and Huber on April 11th, so I'm not sure when that's going to happen, but they're saying it is, so I'll take their word for it, and I know Callum Simpson is going to win his rematch, so it's a good fight to make, why not? But, after Williamson gets through his April 11th fight, which is already a tall order. And then just some other quick notes. Conor Tierney versus Rico Franco is set for the interim welterweight title of BKFC Birmingham on May 30th. Pretty fun fight. We just had a good BKFC UK card, a lot of knockouts, and then we're going to have another one just a few months later. I like Conor Tierney a lot, and that's a good fight with Rico Franco. Cho Silva is going to be returning April 4th on the big MF Pro Chisora versus Wilder card. A lot of good fighters on that card. They're putting all their top prospects on it. Matchroom Boxing have signed Jordan Martinez off of his draw with Arturo Cardenas. Good for him. Really good for him. He put in a great performance, and he deserves it. I expected them to sign him, and it very much seems like that rematch is going to be coming soon. ProBox TV announced that they're going to be in association with Lamont Roach Jr. and Senior. They're going to be presenting another card in Maryland, this time on May 1st, with a lot of those same names we've seen, Jordan Roach, Francois Scarborough Jr. That whole gym is going to be back in action on May 1st, and hopefully it's a fun one. And then lastly, another Matchroom Ghana show has been announced. Now, this one is not a Matchroom card fully. They are going to be in association. Like, it's not really their event. They're like the secondary promoter. But yeah, it's going to be headlined by Theo Lottie versus Jonas Erastus and April 10th in Ghana. So good for African boxing to stay going. We know that Matchroom signed like a 2 or 3 fight deal with Ghana to put on some cards. And it looks like they're going to be helping to promote this one. Theo Lottie is top 10 rated in the Ring Magazine. I believe he's a flyweight. So yeah, good guy to keep on putting on those cards, and he'll be in a big fight soon enough. That is all I've got for today. It was a lot to talk about. I hope I went through it quick. Really fun weekend in combat sports. A lot of great fights and a lot of big news. But yeah, we've got another big weekend coming up. So many fights this next weekend. I'll see you on Thursday probably to do the preview for this upcoming weekend and talk about whatever crazy news happens in between now and then. But thank you so much for listening, and peace out.